Allison Ramirez here, Christian author, editor, and content creator, and today we are going to be talking about NaNoRiMo, as you can see hopefully from my shirt. Yeah, so the topic of today's video is all about NaNoRiMo, and if you have never heard of NaNoRiMo before, it's an acronym that stands for National Novel Writing Month. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 5 categories about NaNoRiMo. The first is what it is, if you've never heard of it before. The second is how did the NaNoRiMo process go for me in 2021. The third category is what was my process for NaNoRiMo. The fourth category is there anything I would have done differently during this process? And the fifth is a little bit of a reveal on what my NaNoRiMo project was and how I am still working on it now after NaNoRiMo has been completed. Okay, so starting off, what is NaNoRiMo? So National Novel Writing Month comes around every year, and it's always in the month of November. So from November 1st through November 30th, this is a month where all writers and authors to be come together, and we all work to achieve the same goal, which is to write a book in a month, or another way of saying it is to write specifically 50,000 words in the month of November. So if you're someone that has been dreaming of a book that you've wanted to write for a while, you've been planning it, you've been brainstorming it, November is an awesome time to actually really dive in and write that book that you have just been putting off or haven't been able to find the time for. I kind of like to compare this to like those people that join those like weight loss competitions, and maybe they've been trying to like lose weight for a while but they haven't been able to find the motivation, and so they join this competition and maybe it's like 30 days or 60 days or something like that, and they're with other people and they make their goals of like how much weight they want to lose, and it's like you're cheering each other on and you're motivating one another with your workout plans. It's kind of that same idea but for writers and writing their books. So the awesome thing about NaNoRiMo is you're not just writing by yourself, you're writing with like thousands of other people around the country and around the world. And the official website, you can go to it online, it's NaNoRiMo, I think .org. And once November actually begins, and even like the month leading up to November, you can go on there and they have so many different resources. They have like webinars you can tune into about different topics. There's writing groups you can join. They have like different resources for you all about writing and editing your book. And so it's just an awesome place to get connected with other writers and to just actually find the time and the motivation and the reason to write that book that you've always been wanting to write. So that's kind of an overview of what NaNoRiMo is. I had never heard of this until actually probably October of last year, because as I mentioned in other videos, I started learning about self-publishing in April of 2021, and a big way I was able to learn about it was through other authors on YouTube. I just watched their channels and they talked about so many cool things about writing and editing, and in October a lot of the videos were talking about NaNoRiMo, because October is usually called like Preptober, because in October you're preparing, you're making your outlines, you're getting yourself ready to actually write your book in November. So they were putting out a lot of videos about NaNoRiMo, and I was like, oh wow, I'd never even heard of this. This sounds like a really cool opportunity to write a book. And at the time, I actually had just published my first book on October 7th. And so I had been really working a while on that, and so that book was finally completed. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not currently working on anything right now, so this could be a great opportunity for me to start on something new. And I had published my first book was in the nonfiction area, and I had an idea for a fiction book, and it seemed like a lot of people were also writing fiction in NaNoRiMo, and so I thought, okay, this could be pretty cool. And so that's when I officially decided I wanted to do NaNoRiMo, was in early October after I had published my first book and heard other people on YouTube talking about it. So now I'm going to be telling you how NaNoRiMo went for me. As you probably already could read from my shirt, it's called winning NaNoRiMo if you actually successfully wrote 50,000 words in November, which I did. So I was able to order this shirt, and now I wear it often when I'm writing or editing. It's just motivation to see that I can keep writing because I successfully accomplished the goal of NaNoRiMo in November. Specifically for my process, so I completed NaNoRiMo on November 24th. So I actually finished the 50,000, I got to the 50,000 words before November was over. I had 6 days left, and so I think I just stopped. I didn't write those last 6 days because I already had hit 50,000 words, and I really just wanted a break, because some people will write every single day in November. Some people will just write like every few days, but they're still trying to get to that 50,000 word goal. I thought that it was going to be really hard, and it was, and so I didn't give myself any break days. I just wrote every single day in November until November 24th, when I hit 50,000 words, which I think was actually maybe the day before Thanksgiving, something like that. So it was already kind of a busy time with holidays, so I didn't write those last few days, but I wrote 50,000 words, and I actually, when I finished writing 50,000 words, my book wasn't over. I'd hit the NaNoRiMo goal, but I still had more of the story to tell. So once like Thanksgiving was over, I came back to the book, and I officially finished the first draft of the entire book on December 19th. I added an additional, I think, 14,000 words, and my final word count total for the first draft was something like 64,000 words. And then since it was December 19th, I was like, okay, this is a good time to like really take a break, because Christmas was coming up and New Year's, and a big recommendation is whenever you write a book to set it aside for several weeks, to give yourself a rest period, to just take a break from the book, to come back to it later with fresh eyes. So that worked out really well, because, you know, from like December like 20th to like early January, I didn't even look at the book, and then I returned to it in the new year to really start editing and revising it. But that was how NaNoRiMo went for me. So now to kind of tell you about my process, I will say everyone's process is completely different, which I think is really cool, because there isn't really a right or a wrong way to write a book. There definitely is a right or a wrong way when it comes to like editing your book and the cover and all that, but when it comes to actually getting the book from your head to the paper, it's really just whatever works best for you. For me personally, I found it helpful to actually record every day that I wrote, and like how many words I wrote and how long I wrote for, just to kind of see if I was being consistent and see if that's something I could keep up on a regular basis after November was over. And so I wrote every day, as I mentioned, until I finished the challenge on November 24th. And I kept track of my totals. And the least amount of words I ever wrote in a single day was on day 4, was on November 4th. I wrote 1,189 words. And the most words I ever wrote for NaNoRiMo was on day 15. November 15th, I wrote 3,162 words. So I wrote anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 words. An amount of time that took me. So the least amount of time I ever wrote for was 30 minutes in a given day. And I think the most amount of time I ever wrote for in a day was an hour and a half to 2 hours. So that was how much time I spent each day writing, and that was how many words like that ended up being. I will say though that some people will write for maybe, you know, 5 hours and they'll write barely any words, or they'll write for a short amount of time and write a lot of words, because, you know, some people can just type, you get all your ideas out, and other people, they like really take their time and they really think about exactly what they want to say. For me, I do not like writing first drafts. I would much rather edit a draft that's already been written, so I just wanted to get that book done. I really didn't care how bad it sounded, how bad the characters were, or the plot holes. I just wanted to just write it. So I was just typing, like writing as fast as I could. That was my process, but again, everyone is different. You might hear the term pantser versus plotter, and that's a term in the author YouTube community that just means that if you're a plotter, you are someone that likes to meticulously plan out your book before you even start writing it, versus if you're what's called a pantser, that means you have pretty much no plan, maybe just an initial idea, and you just sit down and you write whatever comes to mind until you finish the book. And both of those are valid. Both of those can work, because really it's in that editing and revising stage after the book is written where obviously you really like fix it up and fine tune it and make it better. I would say I'm somewhere in the middle. I did have an outline when I went into NaNoRiMo in October. As I mentioned, that's like the prep time for actually writing in November. I wrote a chapter outline of the entire book. So like chapter 1, you know, what I thought was going to happen. Chapter 2, what I thought was going to happen. I had an idea of my characters, and I had an idea of my world and my setting. And I followed that pretty accurately as I wrote. I obviously, you know, added some things, interchanged some things along the way, but I had an overall outline of my book. I wouldn't say it was super in-depth, but I had an understanding of where I was starting and where I was going. And that really helped me a lot, but I still gave myself that leeway to, you know, change things up as I went along and as I was writing if I needed to. A few other additional details I'll add about my process. In October, I would highly recommend maybe following some of those authors on YouTube that have been doing this for a while, and they have actually some resources that can help you prepare to write your book. Specifically, I used Natalia Lee's Preptober workbook. She is an indie author and an editor, and she on her website will have this like 20 to 30 page like PDF, I think, that you can download for free. She just asked like for like a small donation, and I found this super helpful. You can like map out your characters, you can map out like your writing space, your plan for writing in November, just kind of get yourself in the right headspace. So I'd highly recommend like resources such as that from other authors that have gone before you and kind of have really thought this through on how to prepare best for NaNoRiMo. I also considered my writing space. So I wrote every day. I didn't write at the same times every day, but I made sure that I didn't go to bed until I had written something. I did write in the same space, so I wrote in my office at my desk. And before I started, I would always make sure that I had cleared out all noises and distractions. For me, I have several pets, like my dog, that can be a little bit loud, so I made sure that, he was put away. I made sure that I had like a cup of tea with me or some water and some snacks. I made sure that I like had a little candle lit, and I said a prayer always before I started writing, just to like, quiet my mind and get myself really prepared to write as best I could in the time I was writing for. So I would say, have a good writing space. I also had a writer's playlist, so I put together like on Spotify some songs that I thought would motivate me as I was writing and help to inspire me. Some people like have their Pinterest boards where they have pictures of their characters and their scenes to help inspire them. Whatever is helpful to you. Getting that good writing space really helped me out throughout the process. What's one thing I would have done differently? For me, I would have definitely utilized the community elements of NaNoRiMo more. For me, I just was very much interested in winning NaNoRiMo, which was writing those 50,000 words, and I really wasn't much concerned with much else. But I think that wasn't the best idea, because I could have taken advantage of like what's called like writing sprints, where other authors have like live like streams going on where you can like log on and write at the same time as other people are writing, and connect with them in the chat boxes and all that. There's also like different writing groups you can be a part of, like other people that can help motivate you as you're writing. I didn't take advantage of any of those opportunities, and I think I really missed out, because I could have made some other friends that were writers maybe in the same genre as me, and then I would have had people to help me like down the road when I was looking for beta readers or critique partners to review my draft and give feedback. So I'm planning to participate in NaNoRiMo again this year, and I think will focus less on making sure I hit the 50,000 word goal, and I'll spend more time actually trying to build community and get to know other authors and other writers, because it's always really good to have people in your corner, other people to support you. You can support one another, cheer each other on, and help one another, because writing can be a very lonely and solitary process at times. So it's good to know that you have like the other larger community to help you out. Okay, now finally, the moment I've really been waiting for. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my NaNoRiMo project. So I mentioned at the start of the video that I had written nonfiction as my first book, my debut book, and I was going to be diving into fiction for the NaNoRiMo challenge, which I did. And I finished my book, as I mentioned, at the end of December. I gave it a few weeks break, and probably like January 5th or so, I picked it up again. And for the past 6 weeks, I have been working on heavily revising and editing it. I think I still have probably another month to go before I ask for some beta readers and critique partners to take a look at it. But I will tell you that I don't know the title yet. I don't even have a tentative title, because any title I've come up with just does not feel right to me. Like, it doesn't feel like it represents the book well. But I do have the genre figured out for the most part. I'm writing fiction. Specifically, I'm writing Christian fiction. And it's probably gonna end, I'm debating if it's gonna be like a dystopian fiction or like fantasy. I feel like it really doesn't have that many fantasy elements, but I've been debating if I want to add more fantasy to it. But right now, I would say it's definitely Christian fiction. It's leaning more towards it's going to be a Christian dystopian fiction, like a futuristic world. Maybe fantasy, maybe not. But if you're interested in any of those genres, then hopefully you can keep this book on your radar. I haven't shared the release date yet. I do know what it is, but I will tell you that it's going to be in some of the final months of the year. So it's not going to be before summertime, I'll tell you that. But I'm hoping that by the end of 2022, I will officially publish it. Right now, it's going to be published on Amazon. I'm still debating if I want to branch out and publish it on other platforms like Ingram Spark or Draft Digital. We'll see as the time comes. And obviously, when I have the cover revealed and the title revealed, I will let you know. But I thought it'd be fun to share with you a couple photos. This is from my Pinterest boards. Pinterest is a great way to just save like clips of like images that inspire you about your world or your character. So I'm gonna show you a few now. Hopefully they show up okay in the camera. But these are two images. I'll zoom in a little bit on them. You can kind of see like some green rolling hills. There's like a brook. There's like a little house at the end on this picture. This one is actually a picture from Ireland. This is the Cliffs of Moher, which, fun fact, I actually went there in real life with my mom in 2019. Highly recommend. I love Ireland so much with the waters. So these are like some images that are very much represented as some scenes in my book. This kind of gives you a little bit of what the setting is like. I'll flip to the other side. This is kind of another view. Again, this is like kind of that rolling hill, stone wall feel. This is very much like what the world and setting in the book looks like. And then this image, actually, you can kind of see one of the characters, or one of the like images that really reminds me of one of my main characters in the book. This is like, it's also young, it has a young adult feel to it. Like the characters are in their early 20s, and you can see she's kind of like walking again like on those green hills looking out over the water. So those are kind of some scenes I found, or images I found on Pinterest that have to do a lot with several of the scenes in my book. So that can kind of give you a little bit of visual on what the feel of the story is like. But thank you so much for tuning into this video today on NaNoRiMo. If you've never participated in NaNoRiMo before and you have a book you'd love to write, again, it's still several months away, but in November of this year, NaNoRiMo will be coming around again and you can begin preparing. I'd recommend it in October. But if you like this video, please like and subscribe, ring the bell for future notifications on other videos, and I hope to see you again soon in my next video. Take care and happy writing.